Hey guys, it's me, Rich. Look, you'd think a political party bleeding cash 100 days before the midterms would be front page news. It barely made a ripple. Here's the what. Democratic megadonors, the Soros family, LinkedIn's Reid, Hoffman, the people who've bankrolled this party for a generation, have quietly stopped writing the checks to the DNC while Republicans sit on a 9-figure war chest. We're breaking down the secret NDA demands, the socialist civil war splitting the party, and the Texas money fight that could decide 2026. And if you stick with me till the end of this video, you'll see exactly why Democrats are running out of time to fix it. Let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to RPW Media, where we are MAGA first, conservative second, Republican third, with the goal of bringing you the most honest news coverage of the day. Okay, so by now, nearly everyone has heard the Democratic National Committee has a money problem. Vendors weren't getting paid on time. The story leaked, and the political press did what it always does. It treated it like a scheduling error instead of what it actually is. But here's the thing nobody in the mainstream media wants to say out loud. This isn't a DNC problem. This is a Democratic Party problem, and it goes a lot deeper than one committee's bank account. The Wall Street Journal actually did some real reporting here. Shocking, I know, but they found something that should terrify anyone wearing a blue tie right now. Major Democratic donors aren't redirecting their money. They're closing their checkbooks entirely, and that leaves the party dangerously exposed headed into the midterms that they were supposed to win comfortably. Let's start with the names, because the names are the story. George Soros and his son Alex gave more than $400,000 to the DNC in the 2018 midterms. By 2022, that number topped $1 million. This year, zero, nothing, zip, nada, not a dollar. Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn co-founder who's basically been a walking ATM for the DNC for years, right? He hasn't given a cent in this cycle either. Now, when those guys who print money for Democrats stop printing money for Democrats, that's got to tell you something. For a while, this looked like it was just about one man, DNC chair Ken Martin. His troubles seemed like political theater, and Nothing Media mostly shrugged it off. That changed when it came out that Martin wanted committee members to sign non-disclosure agreements before they were allowed to even look at the DNC's own financial records. Think about that for a second. The people who are supposed to oversee the money had to promise silence just to see the money. Now, was this all Ken Martin's fault? That was the comfortable assumption that donors just lost faith in one guy's leadership. And look, Kamala Harris didn't make the job any easier. Her presidential campaign torched $1.5 billion in 107 days and still left a mountain of unpaid bills for Martin to clean up, with basically zero help from Harris herself. Barack Obama did the same thing to the DNC, and that led to Hillary Clinton securing the nomination in 2016 because she promised the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chairwoman, that she would fund everybody's campaigns as long as they guaranteed her the nomination, and they booted Bernie out. Truth. But that comfortable little theory now, donors just don't like Martin. They're moving their money to groups he can't run into the ground. It turns out to be false. Because here's what's actually happening. Donors are pulling away from huge parts of the entire Democratic fundraising machine, not just the DNC. And Martin may be part of the story, but he's nowhere near the whole story. There's a much bigger fight happening underneath all of this, guys. A war between the party's socialist wing and the traditional donor class that's financed the Democratic establishment for decades. That's the real headline, and nobody's covering it. Now we are. And it's not just the DNC that's struggling. Republican committees and super PACs are now beating their Democratic counterparts across the entire political fundraising system. Sure, being out of power in Washington always makes fundraising harder. That part's normal. What's not normal is the scale of this. Some big donors are still furious about how their money got used in 2024 when Kamala Harris raised over $1 billion in a matter of weeks and still lost after Democrats rammed through her nomination without so much as a real primary. Not one primary vote. Think about that, guys. Other donors are pointing to the party's internal fractures, the war in Gaza, anti-Semitism here at home, and the rising influence of Democratic socialists, commies, in the party. And the numbers, they tell a story better than any of us could. According to the Journal's own graphic, the pro-Trump MAGA Inc. super PAC has built a $400 million war chest, more money than either party's official campaign committee has. Let that sink in for a second. A single super PAC has more cash than the RNC or the DNC. But here's the part that should really worry Democrats. Republican donors aren't treating MAGA Inc. as an excuse to ignore everything else. Money is pouring into every Republican organization at once. The National Republican Senatorial Committee is sitting on $56 million compared to $41 million for the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. The NRCC has $92.7 million on hand. The DCCC has $79 million. The top Senate Republican super PAC has $239 million. Its Democratic counterpart, it just has $126 million. Yikes. The leading House Republican PAC has $142 million versus $90 million for Democrats. Across the board, Republicans have the money advantage, and it's not even close. Now, a broke DNC is bad enough on its own. Unfortunately for Democrats, the damage doesn't stop at party headquarters. The DNC and RNC feed money, staff, and resources down the state committees. Most congressional candidates can't build a real get-out-the-vote operation on their own. They lean on their national party's network to do it. Now, take that away, and smaller campaigns just don't have the machinery. Republicans currently have a 9-figure cash advantage, which gives them a massive organizational head start. It may also explain why Martin has reportedly asked DNC vendors to keep working through the election and wait until afterward to get paid. I mean, think about that again. They want them to wait until afterward to get paid. The DNC is asking people to work now and hope they get paid later. Here's an interesting wrinkle, though. National committees don't carry the influence they used to. Campaign finance reform laws slapped arbitrary limits on direct donations to parties and candidates. So the money simply flowed somewhere else, into PACs and super PACs, which now arguably matter more than the party organizations themselves. And Democratic donors haven't vanished completely. They're just writing checks straight to individual candidates instead of to the party machinery. Texas is the clearest example. State Representative James Talarico reportedly has $55 million on hand. Attorney General Ken Paxton, he has just $4 million, a gap that's partly explained by an ugly Republican primary, since some GOP donors are still angry that Paxton challenged Senator John Cornyn. Republican leaders are reportedly hoping to patch that up by Labor Day. But Talarico's cash pile isn't as comfortable as it looks, guys. Black voters remain angry about his primary challenge to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Remember her? And repairing that relationship alone could eat up close to half of his war chest. His giant fundraising lead might shrink dramatically before the general election even starts. And even if he spends tens of millions of dollars just getting Texas Democrats back to where they stood under Colin Allred, that's not exactly a triumph. Allred lost to Ted Cruz by nearly 10 points just 2 years ago. Democratic money is also flooding Senate races in Georgia and Ohio, where Democratic incumbents are fighting serious challengers in Republican-leaning states. Heavy spending in close races is normal. What's not normal is what's happening everywhere else. Because in past cycles, Democrats usually kept the fiscal edge inside the national committees while also funding their PACs. Not this time. Not this time around. And here's the thing. Once the Republican primary season wraps up, GOP Senate nominees can start raising general election money and pulling support from MAGA Inc. and other well-funded groups. Democratic incumbents have already had months to build their war chests. That means the current Democratic fundraising edge in individual races could shrink fast, and heavy Republican PAC spending could make the differences between candidates almost irrelevant. Democratic donors can still change their minds before November, But time is not on their side. Money that arrives after the ad buys and the organizing decisions are already locked in loses most of its value. If Democrats want their dollars to actually matter, most of it needs to land before Labor Day, which means the party has just a few weeks to settle its internal civil war. And even then, Democrats may end up burning precious cash on long shot races in Texas, Michigan, and Wisconsin before they realize just how much trouble they're actually in. You gotta love it. So look, this isn't really a story about a DNC bank account. It's a story about a party that can't decide what it believes and donors who are finally done pretending otherwise. Republicans have the money, the organization, and right now the momentum heading into the midterms. Democrats have a few weeks to figure out who they actually are. So tell me what you think in the comments below. I want to hear from you about this. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.